The crimson sun of Prime cast long shadows across the imperial gardens as crouched behind a cluster of luminescent fern trees. His weathered hands trembled slightly as he reached toward the Tears of Solace, a fruit so rare that a single specimen could feed a starving family for months. The translucent, pearl-like orb hung from a silver branch, pulsing with an inner light that seemed to respond to emotional distress. Had served the Empire faithfully for 37 years. He had fought in the border wars, helped establish peace treaties with 3 different alien species, and earned 17 commendations for bravery. None of that mattered now. The human quarter of the capital city was dying, and the Empire's response had been nothing but empty promises and bureaucratic delays. The sound of approaching footsteps made freeze. Through the crystalline leaves, he could see the distinctive purple robes of the Imperial Guard. Captain, a towering with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian, was making his evening rounds. The alien's multiple eyes scanned the garden with practiced efficiency, searching for any sign of disturbance. Pressed himself deeper into the shadows, his heart pounding so hard he was certain the captain would hear it. The Tears of Solace contained healing properties that could cure the plague ravaging the human settlements. Children were dying daily, their parents too poor to afford the astronomical prices demanded by the Empire's medical consortium. The government claimed they were working on a solution, but had seen the classified reports. They were planning to relocate the surviving humans to labor camps on distant worlds. The fruit pulsed brighter as distress increased. Legend said that the Tears of Solace could sense suffering and would reveal their location to those who truly needed them. Had dismissed such stories as folklore until tonight, when a dying child's cries had led him through the palace gardens like a beacon. 8-year-old lay in the makeshift hospital that had been established in an abandoned warehouse. Her fever had reached dangerous levels, and the human doctors had exhausted their limited supplies. Her mother, Maria, sat beside the narrow cot, whispering lullabies in Spanish while tears streamed down her face. Was the daughter of former commanding officer who had died defending an outpost from raiders. Owed his life 3 times over. More than that, he had promised his dying friend that he would look after and Maria. The Empire's indifference to human suffering had made that promise increasingly difficult to keep. Food rations had been cut again last month, medical supplies were virtually non-existent, and the human quarter was slowly being strangled by neglect. Captain's footsteps grew closer. Could smell the distinctive ozone scent that all carried, a byproduct of their bioelectric metabolism. The captain paused directly in front of his hiding spot, his 4 arms moving in a complex pattern that indicated deep thought. Held his breath, every muscle in his body coiled like a spring. Interesting, murmured in the melodious language of his people. The fruit responds to genuine need, yet someone lurks in shadows. Perhaps this intruder seeks not personal gain but salvation for others. His blood ran cold. The captain knew he was there, yet made no move to search the foliage or call for backup. Instead, the officer continued his patrol, moving past his hiding spot with deliberate slowness. As his footsteps faded into the distance, realized he had been given an unexpected gift. The human reached out with steady hands and carefully plucked the Tears of Solace from its branch. The fruit was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Ancient texts spoke of the fruit's ability to cure any ailment, but they also warned of severe consequences for unauthorized harvesting. Didn't care about the risks to himself. Was dying, and this might be her only chance. As he prepared to leave the garden, a soft voice stopped him in his tracks. "You take great risks for one so small." Spun around to find a figure cloaked in shimmering fabric that seemed to bend light around it. The voice was unmistakably female, but he could not make out any features beneath the hood. "The child suffers while her people are forgotten," replied, surprised by his own boldness. "If taking this fruit means saving her life, then I accept whatever consequences follow." The mysterious figure stepped closer and caught a glimpse of pale skin and eyes that seemed to hold depths of ancient wisdom. "You speak of consequences, yet you do not understand their true nature. The Tears of Solace carry a price that extends far beyond personal punishment." "Then tell me," said, clutching the fruit protectively against his chest, "what price must be paid for a child's life?" The figure raised one hand and felt a strange compulsion to remain still. "The price is truth. The truth about why your people suffer, about the forces that conspire against humanity, and about the role you must play in the days to come." Felt a chill run down his spine. How did this stranger know his name? More importantly, what did she mean about forces conspiring against humanity? The official reports claimed that the plague was a natural outbreak, contained to the human quarter by pure coincidence. I don't understand, said. Who are you? How do you know about the plague? The figure lowered her hood, revealing features that were hauntingly beautiful yet unmistakably alien. Her skin had a pearl-like luminescence, and her eyes shifted colors like captured starlight. She was neither human nor, but something far older and more mysterious. I am what your people might call a friend, though my kind has watched from shadows for countless generations. The plague that kills your young ones is no accident. It is a weapon designed to eliminate humanity from this galaxy. The Fruitan's hands pulsed with sudden intensity, as if responding to the revelation. He staggered backward, his mind struggling to process what he had heard. That's impossible. The Empire has always protected its member species. The treaties guarantee equal treatment. The mysterious woman smiled sadly. Treaties written by those who never intended to honor them. Your species possesses qualities that threaten the established order. Your adaptability, your resilience, your capacity for innovation, these traits make you dangerous to those who would rule through stagnation. Thought of the human quarter, of the slowly dying children and the desperate families. He thought of the repeated promises from imperial officials, the delayed supply shipments, and the increasingly restrictive laws that seemed to target humanity specifically. Pieces of a terrible puzzle began to fall into place. You're saying they want us dead, he whispered. Not dead, the woman corrected. Eliminated, there is a difference. Dead martyrs inspire revolution. Disappeared peoples are simply forgotten. The weight of the fruit in his hands seemed to increase tenfold. Looked down at the glowing orb, understanding now that he held more than just medicine. He held proof of conspiracy, evidence of genocide, and perhaps the key to humanity's survival. Why tell me this? He asked. What am I supposed to do with such knowledge? The woman began to fade back into the shadows, her form becoming translucent. Save the child, but know that in doing so you will set in motion events that cannot be undone. The Empire will discover the theft, they will hunt for the thief, and they will learn that humanity has allies they never suspected. Wait, called out. What allies? Who are you? But the garden was empty except for the whisper of wind through alien leaves. Stood alone with stolen fruit and terrible knowledge, knowing that his simple act of compassion had somehow become the first move in a much larger game. In the distance, he could hear the faint sound of coughing, a reminder that whatever cosmic forces were at play, a child's life still hung in the balance. Secured the fruit inside his jacket and began the dangerous journey back to the human quarter. Behind him, the empty branch where the tears of solace had grown began to emit a soft alarm signal, one that would bring Imperial investigators by morning. The theft would be discovered, the search would begin, and the consequences would ripple throughout the galaxy. The makeshift hospital buzzed with frantic activity as arrived with the stolen fruit. Dr. Sarah, one of the few remaining human physicians, looked up from his bedside with exhausted eyes. The child's breathing had become more labored, and her fever showed no signs of breaking despite their best efforts with conventional medicine. Where have you been? Doctor whispered urgently. Her condition has worsened. We've tried everything in our limited arsenal, but without proper Imperial medical supplies. Pulled the tears of solace from his jacket, its pearl-like surface casting dancing light across the dim warehouse. Several nearby patients and their families turned to stare, their eyes widening with recognition. Everyone in the human quarter knew the stories of the miracle fruit, though few believed such legends were real. How did you get this? Doctor breathed, her scientific skepticism warring with desperate hope. The Imperial gardens are heavily guarded and the penalties for theft. The penalties don't matter if she dies, replied, gently placing the fruit in the doctor's hands. Can you extract its healing properties? Doctor examined the fruit with trembling fingers. Her medical training told her that alien folk remedies were unreliable at best, but decades of practice had taught her that sometimes the impossible became possible. The fruit's bioluminescence responded to her touch, growing brighter as her stress levels increased. The old texts mention a specific preparation method, she said, moving toward her limited equipment. But if this doesn't work, if someone discovers what you've done, then we face those consequences together, said firmly. We've all sworn oaths to protect the innocent. Mine was to the Empire, yours was to heal the sick. Sometimes those duties align. Maria looked up from her daughter's bedside, tears still flowing down her cheeks. Is it true? She asked in heavily accented standard. Can this fruit save my? Knelt beside the worried mother, taking her hands in his weathered ones. I don't know, Maria, but I promised I would do everything possible to protect you both. This is everything possible. Doctor worked with practiced efficiency, using her scanner to analyze the fruit's cellular structure. The readings made her gasp in amazement. This is incredible. The fruit contains compounds I've never seen before, proteins that can literally rewrite cellular damage at the genetic level. If the legends are true, this could cure not just but potentially everyone infected with the plague. How much of the fruit do we need? Asked. For alone, a few drops of the extracted essence should be sufficient, but to synthesize enough medicine for the entire quarter. Doctor paused, her scientific mind calculating possibilities. We would need dozens of these fruits, maybe hundreds. Felt his heart sink. He had risked everything for a single fruit, and while it might save, thousands of other humans would continue to suffer. The mysterious woman's words echoed in his mind. Forces were conspiring against humanity, and this plague was no accident. As Doctor began the careful process of extracting the fruit's essence, commotion erupted outside the warehouse. Heavy footsteps and harsh voices in the language announced the arrival of Imperial authorities. Rushed to the window and saw Captain leading a squad of guards toward the human quarter. They're searching for something, whispered to Doctor, or someone. The doctor's hands never stopped moving as she prepared medicine. Then we work faster. Hand me that synthesizer. Outside, the searches were becoming more intrusive. Could hear doors being kicked in, families being questioned in loud, intimidating voices. The Imperial guards were showing no respect for human privacy or dignity, treating the entire quarter like a criminal district. Young Tommy, no relation despite the shared surname, burst through the warehouse doors. Mister, the guards are checking every building. They're asking about stolen property from the Imperial Gardens. Someone said they're offering a huge reward for information. Closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his choices. The theft had been discovered faster than expected, and now the entire human community was under suspicion. Innocent families were being terrorized because of his actions. How close are they? Doctor asked without looking up from her work. 3 blocks away, Tommy replied. But they're being thorough. They'll reach here within the hour. Doctor held up a small vial filled with luminescent liquid. It's ready, the essence of the tears of solace, concentrated and purified. She moved to his bedside and carefully administered 3 drops of the medicine into the child's mouth. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Fever began to break within minutes, her labored breathing eased, and color returned to her pale cheeks. The dark lesions that had marked her skin started to fade, and her eyes fluttered open for the first time in days. Mama whispered weakly. Maria sobbed with relief, gathering her daughter into her arms. You're going to be okay. You're going to be just fine. But the celebration was short-lived. The sound of approaching boots grew louder, and harsh voices could be heard questioning families in the next building. Made a decision that would change everything. Doctor, take the remaining essence and hide it, he said firmly. Continue treating patients, but be discreet. Tommy, spread the word quietly. Anyone who shows symptoms should come here after dark. What about you? Doctor asked, though she already knew the answer. I'm going to turn myself in, replied. If I surrender voluntarily, maybe they'll be lenient with the community. No, Maria stood up, still holding. You saved my daughter's life. We will not let you sacrifice yourself for us. This isn't just about anymore, said, thinking of the mysterious woman's warnings. There are larger forces at work here. If humanity is truly under threat, then someone needs to survive to tell the story. Doctor grabbed arm. You can't just walk out there. If what you've told me about this conspiracy is true, they won't just arrest you. They might make you disappear. Before could respond, the warehouse doors burst open. Captain entered with 6 heavily armed guards, their weapons trained on the assembled humans. The officer's 4 eyes scanned the room methodically, taking in the medical equipment, the patients, and the obvious signs of treatment. Attention humans, announced in accented standard. We seek the individual responsible for theft from the Imperial Gardens. Surrender immediately, and clemency may be shown to your community. stepped forward, his hands raised. I am former sergeant in the Imperial Defense Corps. I take full responsibility for the theft. Studied him with all four eyes, his expression unreadable. Service record shows exemplary conduct for 37 years, commendations for bravery, citations for distinguished service. Why would such a soldier resort to theft? A child was dying, replied simply. I did what was necessary to save her life. The captain's gaze moved too, who was now sitting up in her mother's arms, clearly recovering. His multiple eyes widened slightly as he recognized the signs of miraculous healing that only came from the tears of solace. You use stolen Imperial property to treat plague victims, stated. This constitutes not only theft but unauthorized medical intervention. The penalties are severe. I understand the penalties, Captain. I'm prepared to face them. Approached, his four arms moving in the complex gesture patterns that indicated deep thought among his people. Tell me, Sergeant, what do you know of the plague's origins? The question caught off guard. It was not what he expected from an arrest. Sir. The plague, where do you believe it came from? How do you think it spreads? Glanced at Doctor, who gave him an almost imperceptible nod. I believe it was designed to target humans specifically, sir. Too convenient to be natural, too contained to be accidental. Several of the guards shifted uncomfortably, but showed no surprise at the accusation. Instead, he moved closer too, lowering his voice so only the human could hear. You understand more than I expected, Sergeant. Tell me, during your theft, did you encounter anyone else in the gardens? Anyone who might have aided your mission? Remembered the mysterious woman's warning about allies. He made another crucial decision. No, sir, I acted alone. Studied him for a long moment, then stepped back. By Imperial law, I place you under arrest for theft of protected Imperial property. However, given your service record and the humanitarian nature of your crime, you will be held pending trial rather than facing summary judgment. As the guards moved to restrain him, felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The captain's questions suggested that there were indeed larger forces at play, and perhaps not everyone in the Imperial hierarchy was part of the conspiracy. Captain, Doctor called out as they prepared to lead away. Will the community be allowed to continue medical treatment? We have other patients who need care. Paused at the door. Doctor, you may continue your work with standard medical supplies only. Any further use of stolen Imperial property will result in severe consequences. As the guards escorted from the warehouse, he caught one last glimpse of, now alert and smiling at her mother. Whatever happened to him in the coming days, he had kept his promise too. But the mysterious woman's words haunted him. This was only the beginning, and the real battle for humanity's survival lay ahead. Outside, as they walked toward the Imperial Detention Center, noticed something strange. Captain was not taking the direct route. Instead, he was leading them through quieter streets, away from the main thoroughfares where other Imperial personnel might observe them. Captain ventured, "Are we taking a detour?" His response was quiet but clear. "Sergeant, there are things about this empire you do not yet understand. Your theft, while illegal, may have served a greater purpose than you know." The trial the Imperial Detention Facility was unlike any prison had ever imagined. Instead of the cold metal cells he expected, he found himself in a comfortable chamber with translucent walls that provided privacy while allowing natural light to filter through. A soft bed, basic amenities, and even a small desk suggested this was more guest quarters than punishment cell. Captain had left him with cryptic words about the upcoming trial being interesting. 3 days had passed since his arrest, and found himself increasingly puzzled by his treatment. Guards brought him decent meals, allowed him exercise periods in a garden courtyard, and even provided reading materials from the Imperial Library. On the 4th morning, his confusion deepened when an unexpected visitor arrived. Supreme Counselor, one of the highest-ranking officials in the Empire, entered his cell with minimal escort. The elderly female moved with the grace of someone accustomed to absolute authority, her ceremonial robes marking her as a member of the ruling council. "Sergeant," she said in perfect standard, her voice carrying harmonics that human ears could barely detect. "Your actions have created quite a disturbance in certain circles." Stood respectfully, his military training overriding his confusion. "Supreme Counselor, I apologize for any inconvenience my theft may have caused." gestured for him to sit, then took a chair across from him. Her four arms moved in the complex patterns that indicated deep contemplation among her people. Inconvenience, an interesting choice of words. Do you understand the true significance of what you have done? I saved a child's life using stolen property, replied honestly. I accept the consequences of that choice. The tears of solace have not been harvested without authorization for over 3 centuries, continued. The last individual to steal from the imperial gardens was executed publicly. Yet here you sit, comfortable and well-fed. Do you not find this curious? Felt a chill of apprehension. I had wondered about my treatment. Yes, I expected far worse. Leaned forward, her multiple eyes focusing on him with unsettling intensity. Tell me, Sergeant, what do you know of the Keepers? The question hit like a physical blow. The mysterious woman in the garden had never identified herself, but something about the Supreme Counselor's tone suggested this was connected. I know nothing of any Keepers, Counselor. Interesting, because our surveillance recordings show that you paused for nearly 10 minutes in the garden before taking the fruit. Yet you were alone during that entire time, according to official reports. Most curious for someone who claims to have acted spontaneously. Realized he was walking into dangerous territory. The mysterious woman had warned him about the price of truth, and now it seemed that truth was being demanded of him whether he wanted to give it or not. I was afraid, he said carefully. I spent time gathering courage for what I knew was a serious crime. His expression suggested she found his explanation insufficient. Fear does not explain the energy readings our instruments detected. The tears of solace responds to supernatural influences, Sergeant. Someone or something awakened the fruit's properties that night. Before could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red warning lights flashed, and the sound of running feet echoed through the corridors. His expression shifted from curiosity to alarm as she activated a communication device built into her ceremonial bracelet. Report, she commanded in the melodious language. The response came in rapid, agitated tones that couldn't follow, but the Supreme Counselor's reaction was immediate and severe. Her skin darkened to a deep purple, a sign of extreme distress among her species. Impossible, she whispered, switching back to standard. The plague has spread beyond the human quarter. 3 settlements are reporting similar symptoms. Felt his blood run cold. Doctor had theorized that the plague was specifically designed to target humans, but if it was now affecting, that meant either the disease was mutating or someone had created multiple variants. Supreme Counselor, said urgently, if the plague is spreading to other species, then my people may not be the only targets. Someone is using biological weapons against multiple populations. Stood abruptly, her 4 arms moving in agitation. This changes everything. If you possess information about the plague's true nature, you must share it immediately. Made a decision that would alter the course of his life forever. I believe the plague was deliberately created to eliminate certain species from the Empire. I have no proof, but I've heard rumors of a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of government. The Supreme Counselor's multiple eyes widened with what interpreted as shocked recognition. You know of the purification protocol. The what? Nothing, said quickly, but her reaction had already revealed too much. Sergeant, I must ask you to accompany me to an emergency session of the Council. Your insights may be crucial to preventing a catastrophe. As they left the detention facility, noticed the changed atmosphere throughout the Imperial complex. Officials rushed through corridors with obvious panic, emergency vehicles streamed toward affected areas, and the usual calm efficiency of the Empire seemed to be cracking under pressure. Supreme Counselor, ventured as they walked, what exactly is the purification protocol? Was silent for several long moments. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. A theoretical plan developed decades ago by extremist elements within the government. The idea was to gradually eliminate species deemed incompatible with ideal imperial society through seemingly natural means. Genocide disguised as accidents and plagues, said grimly. I had believed such plans were abandoned as too dangerous and morally unconscionable. If they are being implemented, it means that certain factions have gained more power than anyone realized. They entered a lift that carried them toward the highest levels of the Imperial Tower. Through the transparent walls, could see the sprawling capital city below. Smoke was rising from several districts now, and emergency response vehicles were converging on multiple locations. "How many species are affected?" asked. "Unknown. Communications are becoming sporadic as panic spreads. But if the plague is indeed artificial and targeting specific genetic markers, the death toll could be enormous." The lift opened onto a vast chamber where the Imperial Council normally convened. Instead of the usual formal proceedings, found chaos. Counselors from a dozen different species argued in multiple languages, while holographic displays showed spreading infection patterns across the Empire. One counselor, a crystalline being from the Silicon worlds, noticed a rival with obvious hostility. "Why is this human criminal present during emergency sessions?" it demanded in translated speech. "Because," replied firmly, "this human may possess information crucial to understanding the current crisis." Chancellor, the elderly leader of the council, called for order with booming authority. His reptilian features were grim as he addressed the assembly. "Fellow councillors, we face an unprecedented threat. Multiple species are now showing signs of the plague previously contained to human populations. Our medical experts believe this represents either rapid mutation or deliberate biological warfare." Stepped forward, his military training helping him project confidence despite his circumstances. "Chancellor, members of the Council, I believe someone within the Imperial government is deliberately targeting member species for elimination." The accusation sent shockwaves through the chamber. Several counselors began shouting simultaneously, while others activated private communication devices. Chancellor's massive fist slammed onto the podium, demanding silence. "Explain your reasoning, human," the Chancellor commanded. Took a deep breath, knowing his next words would either save lives or ensure his execution. The plague affecting humans was too precise, too contained, and too resistant to conventional treatment to be natural. When I stole the Tears of Solace, I encountered someone who warned me about forces conspiring against humanity. Now that the plague has spread to other species, the pattern suggests coordinated biological attacks. Counselor, a graceful humanoid with silver skin, leaned forward with interest. "You mentioned an encounter during your theft. Describe this individual." Hesitated, remembering the mysterious woman's ethereal appearance and impossible knowledge. She appeared to be from an unknown species, humanoid, but clearly not human, or any recognized Imperial race. She knew details about the plague that haven't been made public. "Description," Chancellor demanded. "Pale skin with pearl-like luminescence, eyes that shifted colors, and knowledge of Imperial secrets that suggested either very high clearance or—" paused, realizing how absurd his next words would sound, "or abilities beyond normal intelligence gathering." The chamber fell silent. Several counselors exchanged meaningful glances and had the distinct impression that his description meant something significant to them. Supreme Counselor spoke into the silence. "Fellow counselors, I believe we may be dealing with more than biological warfare. The description matches historical accounts of the Keepers." "The Keepers are myths," protested the crystalline counselor. "Ancient stories told to frighten children." "Are they?" Chancellor's voice carried surprising gravity. "If the Keepers have returned, and if they are intervening in Imperial affairs, then we face challenges far beyond plague and conspiracy." Felt like he was standing at the center of events much larger than he had ever imagined. His simple theft of fruit to save a dying child had apparently awakened forces that had slumbered for centuries and exposed conspiracies that threatened the entire empire. "Chancellor," he said respectfully, "regardless of who or what the Keepers are, people are dying right now. If there is a way to cure the plague or stop its spread, we need to act immediately." "The human speaks wisdom," agreed Counselor. "But our medical facilities are overwhelmed, our supplies of Tears of Solace are limited, and we don't even know the full extent of the outbreak." Thought of doctor working with limited supplies in the human quarters makeshift hospital. "There may be a solution. The doctor treating human patients has successfully synthesized medicine from the Tears of Solace, if we can mass-produce the cure." "Impossible," interrupted the medical chief, a being with multiple compound eyes. "The synthesis requires intact fruit, and our reserves are nearly depleted." "Then we need to find more fruit," said simply, "or find whoever is responsible for the plague and force them to provide an antidote." Chancellor's expression grew thoughtful. "Sergeant, You seem to be at the center of these extraordinary events. Are you prepared to assist the Empire in investigating this conspiracy despite your current legal status? Looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of dozens of species, all facing the same threat that had nearly killed Little. His choice was clear. Chancellor, I swore an oath to serve and protect. If my experience can help stop this plague and save lives, then yes, I am prepared to assist however possible. Even if it means facing the Keepers again? Asked quietly. Remembered the mysterious woman's warnings about truth and consequences. He thought of recovery, of the spreading plague, and of the larger forces apparently moving in the galaxy's shadows. Especially if it means facing the Keepers, he replied. Someone needs to find out what they really want and why they're involved in this crisis. Chancellor nodded slowly. Then let it be recorded that Surge the Imperial Research Facility buzzed with desperate activity as teams of scientists from dozens of species worked around the clock to understand the plague's rapid evolution. Found himself in the strange position of being both consultant and suspect, his unique experience with the Keepers making him valuable while his theft record kept him under constant surveillance. Doctor had been brought from the human quarter to assist with synthesis research, her successful treatment of making her expertise invaluable. She worked alongside biochemists and crystalline computational specialists, sharing knowledge that crossed species boundaries in ways the Empire had rarely seen before. Doctor called out as he entered the laboratory complex. We've made a breakthrough, but it's not good news. She led him to a holographic display showing molecular structures that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The plague isn't just one disease. It's a collection of engineered viruses, each designed to target specific genetic markers found in different species. Whoever created this had access to the complete genetic databases of every member species in the Empire. Studied the display, his military experience helping him recognize tactical patterns even in biological warfare. They're not just trying to eliminate certain species. They're field-testing weapons against multiple targets simultaneously. Exactly, and here's the truly terrifying part. The viruses are designed to learn and adapt. Each new species they infect teaches them how to attack related genetic structures. They're becoming more effective with every victim. Supreme Counselor approached their workstation, her 4 arms moving in the agitated patterns that indicated extreme stress among her people. Doctor, what is your assessment of containment possibilities? Doctor's expression was grim. Without immediate intervention, we're looking at potential extinction events for multiple species within months. The adaptive nature of the plague means it will continue spreading and becoming more lethal until it either runs out of hosts or someone stops it. The tears of solace provide temporary immunity, noted. Could we synthesize enough to protect entire populations? Even if we had unlimited access to the fruit, it would take years to produce sufficient quantities for billions of beings, Doctor replied. We need to find the source and shut it down. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Captain was escorting a figure in the same light-bending cloak that remembered from the Imperial Gardens. Several guards flanked them, but their posture suggested escort rather than arrest. The Keeper has agreed to speak with the crisis team, announced. The mysterious figure lowered her hood, revealing the same pearl-luminescent skin and shifting eyes that had haunted its memories. Now, in the bright lights of the laboratory, he could see details that had been hidden in garden shadows. She was tall and graceful, with features that seemed both ancient and ageless. Her presence filled the room with an energy that made sensitive equipment flicker and hum. I am of the Eternal Watch, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in multiple dimensions. I come because the corruption has spread beyond our ability to contain through subtle intervention. Chancellor stepped forward, his massive frame imposing even next to the ethereal Keeper. You speak of corruption. Are you responsible for the plague that threatens our empire? His expression showed what interpreted as profound sadness. We did not create this weapon, Chancellor. We have been fighting its creators for longer than your civilization has existed, but we failed to prevent their latest attempt at galactic purification. Galactic purification, repeated. You speak of the theoretical purification protocol as if it were more than imperial policy. The protocol is but one manifestation of a philosophy that spans multiple galaxies, explained. There are beings who believe that evolution should be guided rather than allowed to flourish naturally. They see species like humanity, with your adaptability and unpredictable growth patterns, as aberrations to be corrected. Felt pieces of a vast puzzle beginning to align. You're talking about a conspiracy that goes beyond the Empire, beyond even this galaxy. The architects, as they call themselves, have been manipulating civilizations for millions of years, confirmed. They prefer subtle influence, economic pressure, political manipulation, engineered conflicts that weaken species they consider unworthy. But when subtle methods fail, they resort to direct biological warfare. Doctor looked up from her analysis equipment with alarm. The genetic targeting in these viruses is incredibly sophisticated. We're talking about biotechnology centuries ahead of anything in our databases. The architects possess technology that makes imperial science appear primitive, agreed. They have been perfecting their methods across countless worlds. This attack on your empire is merely their latest experiment. Chancellor's reptilian features hardened with anger. Why have the Keepers not warned us before? If you have been fighting these architects, why allow innocent populations to suffer? Because direct intervention often causes more harm than help, replied. Species must be allowed to develop their own defenses, their own unity in the face of threats. The moment we solve your problems for you, you become dependent and ultimately weaker. Understood the logic, but the human part of him rebelled against it. Children are dying while you play cosmic chess games, nearly died because you preferred subtle intervention to direct action. Lives because chose compassion over self-preservation, countered. That choice awakened something in your species that no external intervention could have created. It brought your empire together across species lines in ways centuries of diplomacy had failed to achieve. Looking around the laboratory, realized she was right. Humans, crystalline beings, and a dozen other species were working together with unprecedented cooperation. The plague threat had forced them to share knowledge, resources, and trust in ways the Empire had never experienced. But cooperation alone won't stop the architects, he said. What do we need to do? Gestured toward a wall display, and complex star charts appeared showing movements across multiple sectors. The architects operate from a mobile command structure that moves between galaxies. Currently, their primary facility is hidden in the void between, a region of space where normal physics becomes unreliable. How do we reach them? Captain asked. You don't, they come to you when they choose, but there is a way to force their hand. His expression became resolute. The tears of solace are not merely healing fruit. They are living repositories of genetic potential, seeds of evolution that the architects both covet and fear. Doctor's eyes widened with sudden understanding. You're saying the fruit contains evolutionary triggers. Every species that has been touched by the tears of solace develops new capabilities over time. Enhanced healing, improved adaptability, resistance to manipulation. The architects created the plague partially to force us to use our remaining reserves of the fruit, depleting our ability to trigger these evolutionary jumps. Felt a chill as he realized the implications. They're not just trying to kill certain species, they're trying to prevent evolution itself. The architects believe they represent the pinnacle of development, confirmed. They cannot tolerate species that might eventually surpass their capabilities. Humanity's rapid technological advancement and social adaptability make your species a particular threat to their worldview. So what do we do? Supreme Counselor demanded. How do we fight beings with superior technology and millions of years of experience? Turned to with an expression that combined hope and terrible responsibility. Sergeant, your theft of the tears of solace was not random chance. You were selected by forces you don't yet understand. The fruit you stole contained the genetic pattern for humanity's next evolutionary step. What kind of evolutionary step? The ability to adapt instantly to any environment, to resist any biological weapon, to develop new capabilities in response to threats. But more importantly, the ability to inspire the same adaptation in allied species through proximity and cooperation. Looked around the laboratory at the multi-species teams working desperately to save their civilizations. You're saying humans can trigger evolution in other species. Not just trigger it, accelerate, and guide it. The cooperative instincts your species displays, combined with your adaptability, make you natural catalysts for positive evolutionary change. This is why the architects fear you so deeply. Doctor had been running calculations on her equipment. If what you're describing is real, it would explain the unusual readings we've been getting from humans who received the synthesized medicine. Their cellular regeneration rates have increased by factors we thought impossible. The process has already begun, confirmed. Was not just healed, she was transformed, as were the other patients treated with the fruit's essence, but this is only the first stage. Felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his shoulders. What happens next? The architects will detect the evolutionary acceleration soon if they haven't already. They will come to sterilize your worlds before the process can spread beyond containment. When they arrive, you must be ready to demonstrate that forced evolution cannot overcome freely chosen cooperation. Chancellor stepped forward with grim determination. What do you need from the imperial government? Complete integration of all species' knowledge and resources. The barriers between human and all other member species must be eliminated. Scientific data, military capabilities, cultural wisdom, everything must be shared if you hope to survive what's coming. The Imperial Charter forbids such complete integration, protested one of the counselors. The sovereignty of member species is protected by law. Your laws mean nothing to the architects, replied bluntly. Adapt or face extinction, those are your choices. Looked at the star charts showing the movements of unimaginably advanced hostile forces. Then he looked at the laboratory full of beings working together to save their children's futures. The choice seemed obvious. How long do we have? He asked. Weeks, perhaps months if fortune favors you. The architects move slowly because they prefer certainty over speed. But they will come, and when they do, everything you have built as separate species will be tested as never before. As alarms began sounding throughout the facility, indicating new outbreaks in distant systems, realized that his theft of a single fruit had become something far beyond anything he could have imagined. Humanity's future, and the future of dozens of allied species, now depended on their ability to evolve together faster than ancient enemies could destroy them. 6 months after stole a single fruit to save a dying child, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The emergency integration protocols had shattered of species barriers, creating hybrid research teams, mixed military units, and shared colonies that demonstrated cooperation on scales never before achieved. Had become something extraordinary. The 8-year-old girl now possessed healing abilities that could cure injuries with a touch, enhanced intelligence that allowed her to understand complex scientific concepts intuitively, and most remarkably, an empathic connection that helped other species adapt faster to their evolutionary changes. She had become, in essence, the first of a new generation of galactic citizens. Stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity Station, watching combined fleets from 50 different worlds conduct training maneuvers in perfect synchronization. Human adaptability had indeed proven contagious, spreading enhanced cooperative abilities throughout the Empire faster than anyone had thought possible. The transformation is remarkable, said Captain, joining at the viewport. The officer had his own changes, developing enhanced strategic thinking capabilities that complemented his species' natural tactical abilities. Our response times have improved by orders of magnitude since integration began. It's what the Keepers planned all along, replied. They knew that facing an existential threat would force us to become more than the sum of our parts. Doctor approached them, carrying a data pad filled with evolutionary monitoring reports. Her own changes had enhanced her already considerable medical expertise, allowing her to understand biological systems across multiple species simultaneously. The latest readings show continued acceleration across all integrated populations. We're not just evolving individually anymore, we're developing as a collective organism. Through the viewport, they could see the massive construction projects that had consumed the Empire's resources for months. Ships designed by human engineers using metallurgy and crystalline computing power-created vessels that no single species could have imagined. Weapons systems that combined the best innovations from dozens of worlds stood ready to face threats beyond normal comprehension. Any word from the deep space monitoring stations? Asked. 3 hours ago, our most distant sensors detected gravitational anomalies consistent with architect vessel movements, Doctor reported. Estimates they'll arrive within days. As if summoned by her name, the Keeper materialized beside them with her characteristic disregard for normal spatial limitations, had become a constant presence at Unity Station, offering guidance while carefully avoiding direct intervention in human decisions. "The Architect's advanced scouts have entered this galaxy," she announced without preamble. "They are surprised by what they have found." "Surprised how?" Captain asked. "They expected to find scattered, desperate populations fighting a losing battle against their plague. Instead, they discover unified species sharing resources and knowledge at levels that should have taken to develop naturally. Felt a grim satisfaction. So our accelerated evolution is working. More than working, it's exceeding our most optimistic projections. The cooperative evolutionary patterns spreading through your alliance have created capabilities that even the architects cannot easily predict or counter." Supreme Counselor joined them on the observation deck, her own enhanced abilities now including limited telepathic communication with allied species. The integration process had transformed not just individuals, but entire governmental structures, creating decision-making processes that operated at superhuman speeds. "The final defensive preparations are complete," she reported. "All worlds are linked through the quantum communication network, response fleets are positioned at strategic points, and evacuation protocols are ready for civilian populations." And asked, "She insists on remaining at the primary defense station with the other evolved children. They claim they can sense the Architect's intentions better than our most sophisticated scanning equipment." Closed his eyes, thinking of the little girl he had saved with stolen fruit. And dozens of other children who had received early treatments had become something unprecedented, beings who could consciously guide evolutionary development in themselves and others. They represented humanity's greatest hope and most terrible vulnerability. "Incoming transmission from the perimeter," announced the station's AI, its voice now enhanced with harmonics from multiple species communication methods. "Architect vessels have dropped out of hyperspace at the galaxy's edge." The observation deck's holographic displays activated, showing long-range sensor data of ships that conventional understanding. The Architect vessels appeared to be grown rather than built, organic structures the size of small moons that pulsed with energies that made nearby space itself seem to ripple and bend. 27 primary command ships, Captain reported, his enhanced tactical abilities processing the data streams. Each one capable of sterilizing entire star systems. They're not just here to contain the evolutionary acceleration, they're here to eliminate every trace of it. "Have they transmitted any demands?" asked. "Nothing yet, but their movement patterns suggest they're conducting detailed scans of every inhabited system. They're mapping our capabilities before taking action." His expression grew thoughtful. This is unusual behavior for the Architects. Normally, they would have begun sterilization immediately upon detecting unauthorized evolutionary acceleration. The fact that they're taking time to analyze suggests. "Suggests what?" demanded. "That they're encountering something they don't understand. Your species' evolutionary pattern doesn't match any previous experience they've had. They're being cautious because caution has kept them alive for millions of years." A new voice joined the conversation as entered the observation deck, moving with the enhanced grace that all the evolved children had developed. Despite her young age, her eyes held depths of understanding that seemed ancient. "They're afraid," said simply. "I can feel it across the distance. They've never encountered evolution that spreads through choice rather than force." Knelt down to level, still amazed by what the child had become while remaining recognizably the little girl he had saved. "What are you sensing from them?" "Confusion. They understand biological evolution, technological development, even social advancement. But they don't understand how love and cooperation can accelerate growth beyond what should be possible." Doctor activated her monitoring equipment, detecting energy patterns that surrounded and the other evolved beings. "The children are right. The evolutionary acceleration we're experiencing isn't following any known biological principles. We're developing capabilities through emotional and social bonds that normal evolution couldn't produce." Which means the Architect's standard countermeasures won't be effective, realized. They're designed to halt biological and technological progress, not social evolutionary leaps. "But they'll adapt," warned. Given enough time, they'll develop new methods to counter what you've achieved. The question is whether you can demonstrate the futility of forced control before they complete their analysis. Stood up, looking out at the combined fleets and the bustling activity of dozens of species working in perfect coordination. Then we show them what we've learned. We don't fight them with superior weapons or tactics. We fight them with something they can't comprehend or counter. "What do you have in mind?" Captain asked. "Invitation," said simply. "We invite them to join us." The suggestion sent shockwaves through the assembled leaders. His eyes widened with what interpreted as amazement and terror in equal measure. "That's," Doctor began, then stopped as the implications hit her. "That's either brilliant or suicidal." "Both," agreed cheerfully, "but it's the only path that leads to true victory." The architects have spent millions of years believing that evolution must be guided and controlled, explained. They've never encountered a species willing to share evolutionary advancement freely, without conditions or conquest. If we can demonstrate that cooperation produces better results than control. They might choose to join rather than destroy, finished. But the risk. The risk is everything, confirmed. If they reject the invitation, they will interpret it as the ultimate threat to their philosophy. They will not stop until every trace of your cooperative evolution is eliminated from the galaxy. "And if we don't try," countered, "they'll sterilize our worlds anyway. At least this way, we have a chance to end the cycle of control and domination permanently." Stepped forward, her young voice carrying authority that seemed to resonate from some deeper source. "The Keepers have fought the Architects for millions of years using their own methods. Hidden intervention, subtle manipulation, cosmic chess games. It's never worked because you've been fighting control with more control." "What do you propose instead?" asked. "We broadcast our evolutionary achievements openly. We share the genetic patterns, the cooperation techniques, the emotional bonds that make accelerated growth possible. We offer to teach them what we've learned about voluntary evolution." "You want to give our greatest advantages to beings who want to destroy us?" Captain asked incredulously. "No," said, understanding flooding through him. "We want to give them something they've never had the choice to grow beyond what they are without destroying what others might become." The plan that emerged over the following hours was audacious, beyond anything attempted in galactic history. Instead of preparing for war, the Alliance would broadcast detailed information about their evolutionary achievements to the Architect fleet. They would demonstrate the practical applications of cooperative development, share the scientific principles they had discovered, and offer to extend the same opportunities to any beings willing to participate peacefully. It was a strategy that could result in either unprecedented galactic unity or total extinction. "Are you certain about this path?" asked as the final preparations were made. Looked out at Unity Station, bustling with beings from dozens of worlds working together with joy and efficiency. He thought of, transformed from a dying child into a beacon of possibility. He remembered the moment he had chosen to steal fruit for a stranger's daughter, and how that simple act of compassion had grown into something that might reshape the galaxy. "I'm certain that the old ways of doing things, fighting, controlling, manipulating, haven't worked," replied. "Maybe it's time to try something the universe has never seen before." As the transmission began, carrying the Alliance's offer across space to beings who had destroyed civilizations for millions of years, realized that stealing one fruit for a weeping child had led to the greatest gamble in galactic history. In hours, they would learn whether love and cooperation were truly more powerful than ancient hatred and control. The future of countless worlds hung in the balance, awaiting an answer from beings who had never been offered a choice to grow rather than destroy. And somewhere in the quantum networks that now linked their alliance, the laughter of evolved children carried hope across the stars, confident that the universe was about to discover something wonderful. The war for the galaxy's evolutionary future was about to begin, and a former sergeant who had stolen fruit for a dying child found himself at the center of the greatest battle in galactic history. Is hereby released from detention and assigned as special consultant to the Imperial Crisis Response Team. May the ancestors help us all. As the council dissolved into urgent planning sessions, realized that his journey was just beginning. The theft of a single fruit had become something much larger, a quest to save not just humanity, but the entire Imperial civilization from forces both ancient and terrifyingly modern. It'll be interesting indeed. As they continued through the darkening streets, began to wonder if his simple act of compassion had truly been the first move in a much larger game, one where the stakes were nothing less than humanity's place in the galaxy. But tonight would live, and sometimes, reflected as he slipped through the shadows, one life saved was worth any price demanded by the future.